Hello and welcome to the Insider's Guide to Fitness Industry BS. Let's go with that. I don't think you're supposed to swear this early in the record video. So BS. Let's go with that. So I have identified 6 factors that you should look out for when consuming industry content, videos, magazine, anything really. Pamphlets, leaflets. The first is anything new. There's really not that much new, nothing really revolutionary that is happening when it comes to building muscle. The guys from the Silver Era in the 1940s, 1950s, 1930s, those guys had a lot of this stuff figured out. And so we're not really discovering that much new about muscle growth. So if someone is like, oh, we've discovered this new secret or there's this new study, this is going to change everything, it's not. It's not. And if someone is billing their own expertise or information or experience as something that someone else is not going to have, you instantly know that they're full of shit, right? Like if there's a study suggesting something, everyone has access to this. So it's not like they have this secret study or, Chinese scientists have discovered a way to melt fat without eating a caloric deficit. Often these things are just bald-faced lies that are designed to sell you stuff. And I'll never forget, someone actually left a comment once saying that, Geoff, why should we buy your book or buy anything from you? Like, there's nothing revolutionary here. There's nothing that you couldn't figure out somewhere else. And it was meant as an insult, but I actually took that as a compliment. Because if something is being marketed as new, it's bullshit, because it's not actually new. The stuff that works for building muscle, we've known about for a long time. So you can describe it better, you can maybe communicate it more effectively, but it's the same shit. And if something is effective for building muscle, it's going to be common knowledge for the most part. It's going to be something that everyone is already doing, and the idea that everyone's been doing it wrong for years, for decades, for centuries, we have the answer. Don't listen to other people, only listen to us. That's just marketing. And not even very good marketing. It's pretty underhanded. And usually this new thing is the easy way out. Oh, eat pizza instead of salad and lose weight. Like, you're doing it wrong by eating a salad. You've got to be eating the pizza. That's, the scientists, they figured out the secret. No, it's just bullshit. And by the way, you might be wondering why Salt Bae is in the thumbnail here. I'll get to that at the end of the video. There's a very good reason. Number 2 would be overcomplicating things. And I can see this a mile away. It's very prevalent on Instagram, pretty much every platform, where someone will say something in the most roundabout and overly convoluted way possible. And I know right away, their goal is not to communicate. It's not to actually help people. It's not to get the message across. It's to make themselves seem smarter, and it's to make the topic that they're talking about more complicated than it actually is. And I can understand what they're saying, because I have a pretty good background in this kind of stuff, but if I have to every other word is unnecessarily complex, the goal is not communication, and that should be a red flag. And you often see this in the biomechanics field.
You have your ubulus muscle that connects to the upper dorsimus. It's boring, but it's part of my life.
And it's okay to say, pectorals rather than chest, or deltoids rather than shoulders, or say medial or lateral or something like that. That's fine. Those are sort of the basic standard anatomical terms. And I think sometimes that can be good for clarifying what exactly you mean. However, some people take this way, way too far, where it's not actually helping communication. Another one is where people take mechanistic data and over-extrapolate this to the point where the findings have nothing to do with the original study. I won't name names here, it's very, very tempting too, but there are a number of people where they'll take a study and they'll just run with it, especially if it has some big numbers. If it's like, oh, this increases some enzyme by 200%. It sounds impressive, it sounds like it's actually going to do something, but by and large, it hasn't actually been proven to be tied to the actual result. Sure, maybe it increases some step in the process, but often the end result has no impact at all. But it can sound impressive and it can, sell stuff. And fitness is not that complicated. Okay? If you have to go through a video and every few seconds you're pausing it and like writing stuff down or looking up terms, unless you're really into the stuff or you're a personal trainer, it's excessively complicated. Okay? For most people, the low-hanging fruit is what you should be focusing on: getting good sleep, having a healthy diet, training hard. But the details, even if they're important, a lot of people focus on them so much where they miss the big things, they get shitty results, and then often they get blamed for those shitty results by the people who are feeding them this minutia-minded mindset. Number 3 would be overpromising, or using their own physique and implying that you can get that physique by following their methods.
Just watch out for the guns. They'll get you.
That is by and large not true. And I try to minimize this as much as possible. Obviously, I'm going to use myself for B-roll. I'm not going to hire a model or an actor to do the sets when I could just do them myself. But there's zero implication that you could look like me. If I get a new client and their goal physique is me, I walk that shit back really fast, because you're not going to look like me. You might look better. You might look bigger. You might look worse. But there's no way for me to give you my physique. This is particularly true with enhanced lifters, where you're not going to look like them naturally no matter what. Not even close. And some people lean very, very heavily on their physique. Not physically, because that's impossible. You can't lean on your own physique, but metaphorically, they would have nothing without their physique. And this is especially true again for enhanced lifters, where their information is shit, but they look amazing. But they can't give you that physique because, again, their information is shit, and they don't look that way because of their knowledge or their information. It's just genetics and PEDs. And the overpromising thing is particularly pernicious, because if someone is saying, hey, 10 pounds of muscle, realistic, 12 pounds of muscle, realistic, 15 pounds of muscle, realistic, and you ask 100 experts, what are some realistic expectations for building muscle in a certain amount of time? And then another person is like, nah, these guys are idiots. I can help you gain 43 pounds of muscle. That's what my method does. Of course, it's bullshit, but it sounds amazing. And of course, if you don't know any better, you're just going to go with this person. And then you're disappointed by the results. You have messed up expectations, but they already have your money through the program or through the coaching or through whatever. And so that is really, really hard to fight against. And actually, Geoff Nippard recently had a poll where he asked people, would you rather take advice from someone who knew everything about lifting but didn't actually lift and didn't actually look impressive, or from someone who didn't know very much about lifting but looked amazing? And I kind of get his point of view, because there are a lot of very, very big, very, very enhanced, very, very impressive lifters who don't actually have very good information. And so I do think you need to assess the source not just based on how it looks. On the other hand, I do think it is relevant, and if someone is completely do you even lift, to me, they're not a valid source either. You kind of have to have both, and this is, to me, where the most respected sources of information, they have the knowledge, but they also have the action and the evidence to show that they could put into practice that information. By the way, big shout out to Boostcamp for sponsoring this video, who are not BS. Yeah, you like that tie in there? Pretty crafty of me, right? My scripter, the person I pay to script everything I say, he's going to get a raise from that one. But basically, they are an app where you can log your progress, you can jot everything down in there. Knowing your progress and your progressions, where you've been, where you are, and where you are going, super, super useful. Plus, you get access to some of the best programs out there. I myself have 2 programs up there, Rampage and Ravage, both hypertrophy focused plans, and you can check those out. They are absolutely free, and thank you to Boostcamp for sponsoring this video. Number 4, fearmongering. Now, this is probably my least favorite form of BS. Often there is no evidence or science behind it at all. Sometimes it's anatomical in nature, or sometimes people just assume that a certain position is going to be injurious. Of course rounding your back is dangerous in all situations. Well, what about a sit-up? It's kind of the intention to round your back, right? Of course doing this motion behind the neck is going to be dangerous for your shoulders. There's no nuance, right? It's implying that it's going to be dangerous, by just assuming without giving any actual evidence. And this is what pisses me off because it creates a barrier to entry to lifting, right? Like the other day I was doing dumbbell bench presses and I got like 4 DMs from people who were like, well, why, be careful, like careful of your elbow position. Feels great. If it feels great, it's probably great. However, if you are always told that a certain position is bad, it's probably not going to feel great because you're expecting it to hurt. And fearmongering is a really, really good thing to get a lot of views. And this is just human nature. This is just how we are wired. We are risk averse. We respond a lot more strongly to negative messages compared to positive messages. 5 ways to build muscle is not going to get as many views as 5 ways you are failing to build muscle, you sniveling little runt. And no doubt you can find some video of mine or another where that tactic or strategy or marketing is used. I try to limit it, but you should just be aware that, the chest exercise you should never do. The quad exercise that kills babies. Like, it's clickable, it's going to do really, really well, and you can see which videos do well. You can see which creators have built their brand off of this kind of bullshit fear-mongering, and I think it's important just to be aware that there is usually not a whole lot of truth behind these videos. Why you should never use barbells. The biceps exercise that rips biceps in half by just thinking about it. And that's just how evolution works, right? It doesn't reward the alpha leader charging into battle in front of everyone. No, that guy dies.
For the gains.
He dies every time, Life is not a movie. And so that's just how we are wired. We don't want to get hurt. We don't want to do anything dangerous. But the reality is lifting is very, very safe. Going to play pickup basketball is far, far more likely to injure you than anything you can do in the gym. Number 5, supplements. Now, I take very, very few supplements. I take casein, protein powder, I take creatine, and I take fish oil when I remember, which is not very often. I used to take a multivitamin, I don't anymore. And that's about all that you might want to take for muscle growth. Most supplements are just not going to do very much for muscle growth. Now, for health, there might be some supplements that you might want to take on an individual basis. But when someone comes to me and they're like, Geoff, what supplements should I be taking for muscle growth? And I say, yeah, probably none. Maybe creatine, maybe protein powder if you have trouble hitting your numbers, etc. That's it. They're disappointed. They're disappointed that I tell them that supplements are not needed. And this, I slowly realized, is because people want to feel like they are doing something. They want to feel like they are taking action. They want to open up that wallet, the checking book, probably an app or something at this point anyway. But they want to feel like they're doing something. They want to spend the money. They want to get that gratification. But you're not actually doing very much. How about you take massive action in the fucking gym? Again, a lot of these companies will use mechanistic data or really, really short-term studies. This spiked muscle protein synthesis by 73%. Yeah, but if you're not checking the long-term result, that is absolutely meaningless. It's not actually, in most cases, going to do anything. Plus, a lot of the funding for the research comes from the actual company. And I think in some situations, industry funding is okay. But in a lot of cases, especially with supplements, that does not mean anything. If I see a study and it's funded by the company, I ignore it completely and I just wait. I think that's best, just to wait until you get some actual information, more than one study, more than 3 studies, probably more than 5 studies, until you get a bunch of studies, probably a few meta-analyses as well, and then you can maybe decide to use it if the data is solid. And usually it's not. Usually this new supplement, it's so hyped, it's the rad, it's the turkesterone, etc. And then a few years later, no one is using it at all. And then these companies find the new thing that they can pump up and dump on you, and then you can take it. And hopefully it's safe. There's not a lot of regulation. At the very least, hopefully it doesn't do anything negative to you. But the idea that this is going to revolutionize your gains, in the vast majority of cases, it's just bullshit. It's just placebo. Save your money. Number 6 is overdoing the branding side of things. Now, I get endless emails from people, marketers, copywriters, branders? branding specialists. They're not called branders. It's like, buy my shit. And more often than not, they're like, yeah, you're doing it all wrong, bro. You need to have a brand. You need to have a system. You need to sell stuff. You need to really, differentiate yourself from the market, evoke emotion, and, manipulate your audience. They don't say that last one, but that's kind of implied. Because marketing is manipulation, right? If you're a consumer, this is something I wish I knew, when I was 15 years old and started buying stuff. Marketing is manipulation. It's just trying to manipulate you to stimulate demand for a product. And you have to ask yourself why. Why are they trying to stimulate demand for the product? More often than not, it's because the product is not worth it. And so they have to artificially evoke emotion, oversell, overpromise, promise the result, make up some bullshit, find some study, pay some scientists, etc. And that is a huge chunk of the fitness industry. I don't know the exact percentage, but it's the overwhelming majority for sure. And there are no magic systems, no magic training plans. If you think about it, training is individual. So if someone is like, this program is the best program, for who? For everyone? That's not possible. And so if I have a general program like on Boostcamp or in my books, it's a shotgun. It's just trying to put out something reasonable that is going to work fairly well for the most people. But by definition, it's not magic. And I actually encourage people to be observant and to potentially tweak it over time to make it your program. A lot of people say that, oh, you don't want to change the program. Don't change the program. If you change the program, it's not the program anymore. Well, that's true, but it might be better. You might take one of my programs, modify it, and have it be better. That is entirely possible. In fact, I would say it is probable if you are actually learning from the principles of training and you are going by feel over time. If you're not making the program better over time, there's no point. That's the entire process of training. And so why am I making this video? Because I want a more educated fitness content consumer. That helps you, that helps me. It doesn't necessarily help the people putting out this bullshit, but I don't like those people anyway. So if I can, hurt their bottom line, hell yeah, that gives me a lot of happiness and gratification. And if you're just getting into the fitness industry, doing things the right way is tougher. It is harder. Not promoting bullshit, not selling BS. Yeah, it's going to be tougher. You're going to make less money than you otherwise could, but it'll be more sustainable and it's totally doable. And you'll probably sleep better at night as well. By the way, I almost forgot, why is Salt Bae in the thumbnail? Well, here's a guy who by a ton of accounts is not a very good human being, who became famous by sprinkling salt down his forearm. That's it. His meat was not good, restaurants super overpriced, reviews are terrible, and yet he became super famous, millions of followers, etc., for that. So I think we like bullshit in a lot of cases. We like the gimmicks. People are attracted to those entertainers even if they provide almost nothing of substance. And so if you're like, oh my god, I keep getting scammed, these people, they keep tricking me, there's so many of them, this has happened so many times, it's probably your fault. So yeah, that is all for this video, a little bit of a different one, and I appreciate everyone who has gotten my books. Again, nothing magic in there, nothing special, just something entertainingly written that gives you useful information that will help you. Stuff that you could figure out if you spent a hell of a lot of time researching and reading and experimenting in the gym for 3, 4, 5 years. It's not a shortcut, but it'll help you maybe speed things up a little bit. So I will leave a link for that below, and I will see you in the next video. Peace!